Live and festive in the Publix Holiday Headquarters studio at WSB.
From fake news to flag burning, this week's memes point to a crackdown on the First Amendment. Will President Trump fight back or double down? The Monica Perez Show starts now. This is Monica Perez, your libertarian voice on News 95.5 and AM 750 WSB. I am back on Saturdays. We aim for 3 to 6, but basketball just started, so you know it's not going to happen every week. Next week I'm on from 4 to 6. If you missed the show, though, and you don't know when it's on, you can always catch the podcast of this show, plus an online show I do with my producer, Binkley, called The Propaganda Report, at my new website called it's propagandareportdaily.com. So I put all my podcasts on there, and Binkley and I also post every day a few news items that catch our eyes, and where we think that there's an agenda item at work behind the propaganda, and we just want to, just a real quick hit, lay it out. So you're going to want to check that every day if you're interested in that stuff, or just when you want a podcast, propagandareportdaily.com. And meanwhile, right now, I am live back on WSB, so you can tweet at me at Monica Perez Show, or you can call. We are talking about what I think are these memes in the news, these themes of fake news and flag burning and a lot of other stuff, all of which confirm for me that the First Amendment, freedom of speech, and other things in the First Amendment are in the crosshairs coming up. That's the agenda item to come. If you agree with me, want to opine on the flag burning controversy or the fake news issue, give me a call, 404-872-0750 or 800-WSB-TALK. But just if you haven't, I had one show right after the election, November 10th. And but I haven't had a show on Saturday on my regular time since the election. So just for the record, I've got to say I obviously was not alone, totally gobsmacked that Trump won that election. I had completely been conditioned to believe that Hillary was absolutely going to win that, from the media treatment to the polls to just everything. I just couldn't see Trump winning that. I was out late on election night. I came home and my 11-year-old was standing at the top of the stairs. Mom, Trump is winning. And I said, oh, don't fall for that. They just do that to milk it. I went to bed. I woke up. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. So since then, I've been trying to put it all together, see what I think about it. And one of the very first things that I wanted to examine, and I'm going to continue to examine, is if the agenda items that I had identified as being crystal clear were still in play. So on November 4th, I wrote an article called Teeing It Up for the Censorship President. And I honestly thought that it was Hillary, of course, but now that it's a President Trump, I have to question whether it's still going to be the same agenda. And if you think that Trump really is upsetting the apple cart and it's a whole new ball game, that the old powers are being swept away, I have to say, it already looks like he's filling up his posts with old guard Republicans and neoconservatives and stuff. But if that is true, if he is going to follow the agenda, some agenda items, whether he means to or not, is the censorship thing still on the table? Because I looked at Obama as the surveillance president. There was a Bush program called Total Information Awareness, which the motto was information is power. But there's a flip side of information. I think we should change that now to total information control. Surveillance is where they get everything from you. The censorship is where they control the information that you receive. And I feel like that's the next step in this process. And whether Trump realizes it or not, he's being teed up for this. And I see it in the memes of the week, these news memes, one of which that I found fascinating, the fake news meme where the mainstream media is calling the alternative media fake, which is funny because those of us, I'm going to say, I consider myself in the alternative media. I don't trust the mainstream media. I trust them last. And in the alternative media, people would call it fake news was the mainstream media. That was their word for the mainstream media. There's a John Rappaport, a very popular alternative blogger. His website's called No More Fake News, and it's about the mainstream media. So that fascinates me. And one of the things that's going on with that, in my opinion, is that's getting the left, people who have always acted like they're civil libertarians and promote dissent, and Jane Fonda can go to North Vietnam. And now it's all those outlets, the LA Times, New Yorker, just numerous real left-leaning mainstream media outlets who are calling for really what amounts to censorship, getting the left on board with it. But I see the flag burning episode controversy as getting the right on board with censorship because it's something that horrifies them and is beyond the pale, as it were. So I see that from both sides, there's kind of a flanking maneuver to get people on board with, co-opt them into making inroads into censorship and encroaching on freedom of speech. Now, for my producer Binkley here is in studio. When I first heard this, that people were taking down the flag. The first one I read about was in Lincoln, Nebraska, a while back. And my jaw dropped because in our show, our online show, Propaganda Report, Binkley, you had predicted that when Colin Kaepernick was still just sitting with the national anthem before he even converted that into taking a knee. I remember, I don't have the quote or anything, but I remember you saying, and I was like, no way. You're saying the American flag will become a symbol of hatred and people will take it down. Like you saw this coming as a propaganda maneuver. I just didn't even, I thought that was one of 100 possibilities. And when it started to happen, I was amazed. Can you just in a nutshell tell me how you knew that was going to happen and what you think it means?
Well, the mark of revolutionary or communist techniques for propaganda is to target a national symbol and turn it into a symbol of divisiveness and oppression. And that was clearly what they were doing because Colin Kaepernick had a national stage. And it just seemed, with the patterns they were following, it just followed the same patterns that they followed in revolutionary Russia and all kinds of propaganda movements throughout history.
And what's the point?
Well, the point is to divide and conquer, basically, and to turn the people against each other for the agenda of whoever has kind of hijacked that movement. Because they know that people will take sides. Right, exactly. It's so easy to polarize people, and the national symbol, the flag, has such a deeply powerful meaning for everybody, and then if you can make that meaning just, and start conflict with two opposing groups, then every time you raise a flag or even talk about it, there's going to be a fight. Wow.
Well, I was watching a great video that JB, she didn't tweet it to me, she gabbed it to me. So gab.ai is an alternative to Twitter. I want to talk later about how all this censorship stuff and cyberbullying and all that kind of stuff is completely manageable in a competitive environment where you can move from forum to forum. So she gabbed it to me, this video of a KGB defector who said that dissent is all encouraged now, whatever, but it'll turn to where dissent will be crushed. And then what he said is society could be normalized in as little as 6 weeks once they crush dissent. So what I'm afraid of is that this problem, this is a crisis that's going to demand a solution, and the solution is going to be to suppress this dissent. That makes me nervous. And I think there are people on my side. I think we have some tweets about the flag burning thing. Yes, it's totally distasteful. There are a lot of things that the Muhammad imagery that causes all sorts of uproar, very distasteful. Charlie Hebdo stuff, where they made offensive cartoons of the Holy Trinity and stuff. All that stuff is offensive, but you do generally defend people's rights to express themselves in those ways, even if you reject them, would never buy their publications or anything like that. You have to recognize they have the right to do what they want to do with their own property as long as they don't endanger other people. So I think that's the libertarian position. You have a couple of tweets for me there, Binkley?
I got one right here from Mr. Anon. It says, don't want to ban flag burning. It's freedom of speech.
Yeah, and actually that's well established, as the Antonin Scalia, who is considered a conservative justice. I like to think of him as a textualist, so the Constitution rules. I wouldn't call it conservative. But he was conservative. But he said he doesn't like it, but you have to recognize the right to do it. It's well-established law. This is all Trump had tweeted, nobody should be allowed to burn the flag. If they do, there must be consequences, perhaps loss of citizenship or a year in jail. And funny enough, in 2005, Hillary Clinton co-sponsored a bill that called for something similar to that. So this is from the left and the right. We have so much more to talk about. We'll read more tweets. Take your calls, 404-872-0750, 1-800-WSB Talk. You can tweet at me, at Monica Perez Show.
Check back often for breaking news, weather, and traffic updates on WSB, the WSB radio app this weekend. And join us Monday for Atlanta's Morning News for new developments of the transition to Trump and more cold rain in Kirk Mellish's 5-day forecast.
Pretty overcast outside the studio, but it's still an 8 on the Mellish meter. Weekend weather is brought to you by Shoemate Heating and Air. This is Monica Perez, your libertarian voice on WSB Back on Saturdays from 3 to 6, and we are talking about what I consider to be a broad-scale attack on the First Amendment, that we are in for censorship from all directions. All the media, all the government from right and left are coming at us with excuses to curtail speech. It's just another attack on the Bill of Rights, and they are literally, I think, ticking them off, the Bill of Rights, one by one. But the First Amendment, in my view, I think it's widely accepted that this is it's not for no reason that it was the First Amendment. You really cannot have a if I say we have a democracy, people always freak out. Like, it's not a democracy. It's a republic with democratic processes, you know. So but you cannot have any kind of self-governance. You cannot delegate your responsibilities to government through a vote or consent or anything if you don't know what's going on and if you can't communicate your opinion with others. So I always like to, when I find an amendment in the crosshairs, a right, I like to read it verbatim, because you'll have constitutional scholars come out and make all these opinions. And in my experience, and I went to Stanford Law School, which was all about constitutional issues and really in-depth things, and not just about like the black letter law. But 9 out of 10 times, you can understand what the Constitution means just by reading it. So the First Amendment, the full text is, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. So Congress cannot establish religion. It can make no law, Congress can make no law prohibiting the free exercise of religion, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So it's pretty clear that we need freedom of religion, of beliefs, of speech, of the press, of assembly, and of petition for redress of grievances. It's dissent. This is all about sharing ideas, thinking for yourself, communicating that. It's political power. It's the root of political power. And when they control the information, I mean, there are calls from Obama, Vernon Jordan, Melania Trump. I'll get into it. She probably doesn't even realize what slippery slope she's headed down. But these are calls for censorship, for censoring how we speak to each other, how we communicate, the content, the priority, the weight, the visibility things get. I've got a lot of material on that. And the whole point is that, you know what else is social media, when they talk about watch lists, when they talk about criminal profiling, pre-crime, they talk about how talking about someone's faith and how they feel about America as a way to screen them. I understand the purposes, but their implications are, sometimes what they call unintended consequences are actually the intended consequences. And that's the kind of stuff that wants you to chill yourself, that wants you to restrain yourself from exercising free speech, free thought, free communication, out of fear that by communicating those things publicly with other people, coordinating, you will be put on a watch list. And maybe the watch list keeps you off a plane. Maybe the watch list keeps you from getting a gun. Maybe the watch list keeps you from posting on a blog. I mean, maybe they'll just label you a Russian propagandist for the content of what you're saying and not because they have evidence that you're bad, So all these news items that purport to tell you, what's really going on or the feeling of the people, to me, I see it all pointing to the same agenda. Now, I don't know if Trump's going to pick it up and run with it. I get the sense when he says things like the flag thing and when Melania says that her big cause is going to be a way to control cyberbullying online, that they are not going to hesitate to advocate for laws that curtail our freedoms of speech. So I want to get into those issues. I want to hear what you have to say. 404-872-0750, 1-800-WSB-TALK. Do you see the First Amendment in the crosshairs, or will President Trump save the day? This is Monica Perez.
Live and festive in the Publix Holiday Headquarters studio at WSB.
Monica Perez, your libertarian voice on WSB every Saturday from 3 to 6 when I'm not preempted by some sport or other. Next week, I'll be on from 4 to 6. But you can always catch my podcasts on my new website, propagandareportdaily.com, where I also post podcasts I do with my producer, Binkley, who's here in studio. So you'll always have lots of audio now that he's at the helm. Thank you, Binkley.
You're welcome.
Do you have some tweets for us to share? What we're talking about now is what I consider to be across-the-board preparation for us to accept curtailment of the First Amendment, freedom of speech. From the left, it's the fake news that they're saying we need to censor the news because this fake news is bad for democracy. And from the right, it's the flag burning, that they're equating flag burning with insulting veterans. And for me, this is all a way to get both the left and the right on board with inroads into curtailing the First Amendment. But that kind of thing, crushing dissent, limiting speech, is really the hallmark of totalitarian dictatorships that you really, this video I mentioned earlier of a KGB defector who said, it was a great video. I'll post it if I can remember to. It's actually on Propaganda Report Daily. I recently did post it. And he talks about how once they crush dissent, that like the left is all for dissent, but then when the real like Marxists come into power or whatever, they crush dissent, and then it doesn't take long. He actually said it takes about 6 weeks to normalize the situation. So like dissent is the last step. Like I always think of it as the Second Amendment, that our last line between tyranny and freedom is made of lead, but it's really made maybe of noise, which is why the founders put the First Amendment first and the Second Amendment second, because it's really this ability to dissent that's so important. And although I actually personally don't like any of the offensive dissension, I don't even think it's very effective. I don't like cartoons that offend people's beliefs. I don't like the flag burning. I don't like that stuff. I just don't like it. But because, it's it's so manipulative to have those symbols and then burn those symbols. And I feel like it lowers the conversation to be more visceral when really we should be able to talk this stuff through. Like on the left right now, they should understand that it is time to restore the 10th Amendment, states' rights, because they are terrified of the man at the top. But they're the ones who gave the man all the power. I read an article in the Huffington Post that said, I think, or maybe Salon, that said Trump has all the tools for the total surveillance state. Yeah, right? So I've been saying the whole time that Obama was the total surveillance president, that he was going to set up a turnkey surveillance state for the next guy. And that's what they're complaining about. So it's time to look and see what the principles are for. But what are people saying about the flag burning? What are our tweets?
Brad Rad says, how much can you love liberty when you want to control what people do with their own possessions? That's what kings do. Oh, gosh, that is what Scalia said in a speech that Judge Knapp wrote about, where he said, if I were king, I would ban it. But I'm not a king, and you have to think about why I'm not a king. And that's another thing, a real touchstone of libertarian thought is personal liberty and really, I would say, sacrosanct private property. So if it is your property and you're not hurting anybody, I mean, in the extreme anarcho-capitalist position, which was kind of my last barrier to total anarcho-capitalism, is the idea that even copyrights are an infringement on what you can do with your own paper and ink. That if somebody throws something out into the air, even if it's an idea, you can grab it. You can make a pill out of it or make a poem out of it or whatever. You can reproduce it. I know that's going pretty far. But the idea is that if it's your property, the bottom line, when in doubt, if it's your property, you can do what you want with it. Anything else? Yeah, we got one from Volatrine, it looks like, that says, does the flag symbolize empire or liberty? If liberty, doesn't that include freedom to dissent?
Yes, that's Voltairine. She's a Twitter follower. If you like Twitter, tweet at me at Monica Perez Show. Yes, it absolutely does. And the thing is, if you are going to allow encroachments on the fundamental principles, you really are saying, I trust the guy in charge. And maybe you trust the guy in charge at that moment, but that guy is going to change. So you want to, that's what the founders were all about. Like and he'll change immediately. As soon as you open up this absolute power, he'll change immediately.
Right.
So let's open it up to calls, 404-872-0750, 1-800-WSB-TALK. I'm going to Alan in Marietta. Hi, Alan. You're on with Monica.
Hi there. Glad to have you back. It's been a while.
Thanks. You too, Alan. You're a regular caller.
Yeah. I think is basically our whole country is basically lawyered. I mean, the bills and things that are passed, I mean, if you don't have at least a 10th grade education, you have no idea what you're reading. And as for the flag burning, I'm a veteran. So I stand by, do not burn the flag. I defended it. Why are you doing that to me? But on the other hand, you have to sit there and say, what if I went out and started a hashtag burn flag, and it was the gay flag or the PETA flag or some other flag, and we just all started doing that?
Or what if the flag, Alan, what if the flag no longer stands for what you fought for? What if we have traitors at the top? I mean, not saying now, but you can always, there have been presidents who have worked against this country. And if everything they do is shielded by the flag and they can use that symbol, what if the flag just doesn't stand for what you fought for anymore? Then what do you do?
That's why we have a revolution every 4 years.
4 years? It's not a revolution.
Well, every 2 years, 4 years. This election, I'll be honest with you, I never thought Donald Trump would win. I went to bed that night and went, oh, well, we'll see Hillary. And I woke up the next morning, I was like, oh, my goodness.
Scratching your head, right? What do you think about it? Was it a pure defeat of the establishment, or do you think there was maneuverings going on behind the scene, maybe?
So mad at Washington, D.C. and the garbage they put out. They want anybody except for somebody who has been in office. I mean, you could have put Mickey Mouse up there and they'd probably voted him before Hillary Clinton.
Mickey Mouse got a lot of votes. In one county, yeah. Mouse, Kyle sent me a list. I guess you can get a list of everybody who has voted for, and Mickey Mouse probably got the most write-in votes, more than Ron Paul. So I thought that was pretty funny. Well, I hope you're right, Alan. I hope that it is true that that this was a free and fair election, and it was just about people wanting to drain the swamp. I read an article yesterday, I think, by Mike Pence saying what's going to surprise people is how much we're going to get done in Washington. We're really going to attack gridlock. And I was like, whoa. Greasing the wheels, is not the same thing as draining the swamp. I like gridlock. I like it when nothing gets done. At least no harm can get done. But we'll see what happens. So let us keep going. I'm going to Robert in Alpharetta. Hi, Robert. You're on with Monica.
Hey, Monica, it's great to hear you every Saturday. And I sort of started leaning libertarian way back in the 90s when I was working for a candidate, and I don't remember who it was, in New Orleans when I was living down there. But anyway, I'm digressing. With regard to free speech, I'm always hopeful that, the judiciary is stacked such that, or at least it's coming from a place that it can rule favorably for the protection of speech. And even if that means a flag burning, and I deplore that. It sickens me to think that somebody thinks this country is so bad that they have to burn what represents it. But even that, to me, has to be protected. And if people want to start filing lawsuits and this and that and trying to change or chip away at the First Amendment, again, my point is I would always hope that our judiciary would be ready to step up and defend.
Yeah, here's the thing. I agree with you, and I feel like, especially with the Supreme Court, both the left and the right, there are plenty of places where we all disagree. I mean, the left is totally collectivist, and the right is totally individualist, if you want to just put it in two big baskets. But they both sides seem to defend this absolute right of political expression, free speech, dissent. Yet the memes today that I saw this week, that the big media from both directions and the politicians from all sides, from Hillary to Trump, from Fox to CNN, are all making excuses for why we need to curtail these. That's what made the alarm bells go off. So then you have a Supreme Court, if they're left and right, who should come together rarely on this one issue, follow that lead, then really all is lost. Then really everything is upside down.
Well, I just wish that people would look at it from the standpoint as the framers looked at it, and that's it. I mean, end of story. Period. I don't see where there should be a lot of gray area with this. It is what it is, and all sides should respect that. When it may start to encroach in some way where it becomes threatening to the public or even perhaps even to an individual, then, maybe some liberty should be in place to
Well, that is true. You can't do it when it's going to endanger people. You're not even allowed to burn trash if it endangers people, but this is an expression. So, yes, I'm with you there, Robert. Thank you very much. I'm going to go to Joe for a quick one. Joe, can you give it to me in a nutshell?
Here's what I'll tell you as fast as I can. I watched Tony, your screener there, Monica. Listen, I know what Judge Scalia. I respect his ruling, and I think he's probably the greatest Supreme Court justice to probably ever sit on the bench. But I'm sorry, the man put his pants on every morning too. He wasn't perfect. Ronald Reagan made mistakes. You don't desecrate the American flag. The Constitution, inspired by God, but it's not perfect because it's written by men. You don't desecrate the American flag.
So what do you do to somebody who does it?
You might get away with that in big cities, sanctuary cities, but flyover country, they're going to do it in the wrong place one day, at the wrong time, and a bunch of hard-nosed veterans and Marines are going to defend that flag. That's
so funny. That's exactly what Binkley was saying was the very point of it. We might have to get you to chime in right after this break, Binkley. And I have lots of calls. Benson, Widener, Doug, hang on. More on flag burning. 404-872-0750, 1-800-WSB Talk. This is Monica Perez.
Monica Perez on News 95.5 and AM 750 WSB.
On how you feel about the flag burning issue and going a little deeper with that. What I think it's all about. Binkley had some amazing insights because he saw it coming a mile away from the first time Colin Kaepernick sat on the national anthem, sat down for the national anthem, and I've got some shocking quotes by the president of Hampshire College, which is where the big dust up about students taking down the flag and burning it really erupted. But I want to know how you feel about it, what your gut instinct is, and how you think it comports with American values. 404-872-0750, 1-800-WSB Talk. I'm going to Benson in Atlanta. Hi, Benson. You're on with Monica.
Hey, Monica, I love the show. Thanks for taking the time to talk. With regard to flag burning, just a couple of thoughts to add to the conversation a little bit. So the first one I would point out is the decision by the Supreme Court to protect flag burning under the First Amendment was made before we had really encased hate speech as a legal entity. So where we stand today, in 2016, is that we have speech in our nation that is not legal under hate speech laws, specifically to protect people from doing things that harm others, by the action of their words or the action that they would take, relative to another person. I think what we may see is a revisitation of flag burning under the construct of hate speech, because if it falls into that category based on those definitions, where the strikeout of burning of the flag is viewed as a motivation of hate.
Who is the protected class? Like who is being hurt? Who is being hated?
Well, and so that's a question that we want to discuss, but let me offer this as kind of my second point. So the flag is not just, unlike flags for perhaps universities or other organizations, the U.S. flag represents a specific entity, our government, both at the local levels and the federal level. So that flag is worn on uniforms. And when you burn one flag, what you're doing is you're striking out against the principles of the flag. And when that flag is worn, on a helmet, on a hat, on a sleeve by, state or local or federal employees, whether they be firemen or police or military, I would suggest that there's an argument to be made that the burning of the flag on the street in one city is a strikeout against the principles that are being represented by the folks that wear the flag as part of the uniform.
Wow, that was so interesting and relevant, because I was thinking why it immediately got talked about as a symbol of the veterans, and I thought, is it just a symbol of war? What is the story here? But when you put it like that, it clarifies to me what the protected class would be, and what the other side looks like. I think is interesting to read this quote by the president of Hampshire College, who said, this Hampshire College is where this incident occurred, the most recent or biggest, most talked about incident occurred, where he said, some on campus perceived the flag as a powerful symbol of fear, people who have grown up with racism. So he's actually saying that it's a symbol of racism, and you're saying that, which is juxtaposed to this symbol of people who protect the freedoms. He's saying people who see deaths on the city streets and say that could easily have been me. Obviously, he's talking, they're seeing deaths at the hands of those people. You really tied it together for me, Benson. And we're going to go a little bit deeper into the issue. And if you're on hold, I should be able to get you in the next segment. 404-872-0750, 1-800-WSB Talk. This is Monica Perez.
Live and festive in the Publix Holiday Headquarters studio at WSB.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
This is Monica Perez, your libertarian voice on News 95.5 and AM 750 WSB. Back on Saturdays. We're trying for 3 to 6 as often as possible. That's what I'm on today. And next week I'm on 4 to 6. Basketball moves me around a little bit. So if you missed the show, be sure to listen to the podcast, which I put on my new website, propagandareportdaily.com, where Binkley, my producer, and I are putting up online podcasts, the WSB show, and daily quick hits on stuff in the news that's really meant to serve an agenda and not just give you information. And there is this big theme this week, or it's been ongoing, that I think is heavy with agenda. It's I have found both sides of the aisle are pumping their memes, their themes on how to bring censorship to this country in violation of the First Amendment. On the left, they're talking about fake news, the need to censor, the need to curate, the need to prioritize what stories get the most attention. I'm telling you, that's coming from the very top and from the big mainstream media left news streams, which of course want that because it's going to benefit them. But what it also does is it brings the left on board for encroachment on this most important civil right. Now, on the right, we have the flag burning. And for me, there's it's well established, it's covered by freedom of speech, but it's also clear to me that this issue, which is meant to get, I think, especially because Donald Trump tweeted that it should be punished, it should be illegal, you could lose citizenship or go to jail, that the point there is to get the right on board with starting to curtail. Now, we've gotten a couple of comments that hate speech is curtailed already and that there have been encroachments on the First Amendment, freedom of speech. I get that. And these things, they have to get chipped away at. But I kind of have a smoking gun here, or anyway, what I think is crystal clear that this is a plan to divide and conquer people. I just read before the break a quote from the president of Hampshire College. His name is Lash, and Hampshire College is where the students took down the flag and burned it. They had, at first, the university somebody had flown the flag at half-mast, and then they took it down altogether. So the first thing Lash said right away after the flag was burned, he said, if it was a political act, it was pretty craven and ineffective since people did it in secret and no one knows what it was meant to state. This is what he said. And we replaced the flag the next day. That's what he said right after it happened. And then this article I was reading in the New York Times says, but within a week, Mr. Lash had sent out an email announcing that the flag was to be taken down altogether. And he said in an interview, some on campus perceived the flag as a powerful symbol of fear that they felt all their lives because they grew up in marginalized communities, never feeling safe. So something I've been learning about over the 6 years that I've been president here, but I saw with incredible intensity after the election, was the genuineness and depth of the fear of people who have grown up with racism, who look at the deaths on city streets and say that could easily have been me. Now, I know that was a long quote, but if you look at the difference between what he said a week ago and what he said there, which he claims had been percolating in his mind for 6 years, I mean, that the American flag was a symbol of racism, this is new to me. I understood the Confederate flag issue, which was foreshadowing to this for sure. But when he said that, it looks to me like between his initial reaction and this, he got the memo. That is, if there is, and I don't know who are the masterminds behind this? That's always a question, like who's sending the memo, or is it just
one of those... He spoke with Colin Kaepernick is what he did.
Say that again?
He took a knee with Colin Kaepernick, and they discussed it.
Do you think, because Colin Kaepernick, obviously, it's hard for me to believe that he when somebody does something like that and it gets picked up by every single, like when Trump said in a debate, he said, I might not accept the election results. I noticed immediately, and we talked about it on air, that immediately every single person picked up on it within seconds of the debate being over. And look at how important it ended up being after the election, the hypocrisy on the left. So when I see something really covered, I have to believe that there's somebody, some David Axelrod somewhere, who's sending memos out. I mean, Binkley, you were way ahead of this because you saw when Kaepernick sat for the national anthem that he was foreshadowing a much bigger thing, specifically that the flag would become a symbol of racism and be taken down.
Well, what Kaepernick said is almost exactly what you just quoted the president of this school saying. Earlier on, is the flag is a symbol of racism.
Oh, so this guy didn't even need to get a memo. He could just read it in the newspaper.
Right.
The newspaper is our memo.
Exactly, yeah.
That's the thing about the fake news, about propaganda, is that it's used to influence our feelings and our reactions more than it is to, at this point, I consider that big, all-powerful mainstream media to be about controlling our feelings. But I want to get into more people's reactions to this. 404-872-0750, 1-800-WSB-TALK. I'm going to Widner in Atlanta. Is it Widener?
Widner.
Okay, hi. You're on with Monica. What you got?
Hi, Monica. Thank you for having me. I am a long-time listener and also a first-time caller. In regard of the flag burning, your last caller has put it in the right perspective. However, what I like to add, if I can piggyback on what he has said, to me, it's the most hurtful way and disrespected way any citizen of the U.S. here can protest, okay, or can express any disagreement either with the government or with any other institute, in this great nation. All right?
Yes.
And respectfully, when you say that it's okay to burn your property, and I also disagree with you on that, because there's a lot of things that we we cannot just decide that, okay, today I'm going to burn my car or today I'm going to burn my house.
Well, because that poses a danger to other people.
Precisely. All right. So, however,
physical,
think,
physical danger to other people.
Indeed. All right. Well, to me, the main thing is it's what the flag is really represents. It's what it stands for. Like your last caller was saying earlier, this is it. This is the main reason why we should never. There's so many other ways we could protest against any government or any institute within the government.
So you think it should be not allowed?
It should not be allowed. In regard of Trump saying they should lose their citizenship, as you know, Trump will go a little bit farther with it,
But here's the thing. This is what you always have to think of. As a libertarian, this is how I think about laws. Mm-hmm. If you're telling people they are not permitted to burn their own flag in a fireproof bucket on their front lawn, there's no danger to anybody, how are you going to enforce that? You send cops in there with guns, and if you resist, what do? They drag you away. You have to think about initiating violence into a nonviolent situation. Mm-hmm. That, you know what I mean? It's like that's what private property is about. It's that you cannot encroach.
Yes, I understand that, but at the same token, if the media have the same respect that a lot of us foreigners like me who came from Haiti, I have tremendous respect for this flag. This flag did not represent any racism for me. To me, it's the most idiotic comment anybody can make, that this American flag represents. I can't even say that's how disrespectful it is to me.
I actually thought that the Charlie Hebdo Holy Trinity in a three-way was the most disrespectful thing that I could see. But then you have people from coast to coast holding up signs, Je suis Charlie, I am Charlie. These same people, like the Pamela Geller had a Muhammad cartoon drawing contest. The same people who object.
That was going to be my next comment to you, Ms. Monica.
Okay.
If you go ahead and draw Muhammad into this picture and his name on it, I guarantee you no one can burn that. Because if you burn that, I'm telling you, you're going to hear it.
You're going to have trouble.
You may even feel it, if you know what I mean.
Yes, and that's why I think that we're dealing with deliberate manipulation, deliberately trying to get people to forget about principles and really resort to emotion so that we have conflict, which is what Binkley was saying. This is all about creating conflict. When you have conflict, you call the government in to resolve the conflict, and you're willing to accept a solution you wouldn't accept before because it's a crisis, and you never want to let a good crisis go to waste. More, I've got the full bank of lines. Hang on. I'm going to knock off the calls right after this. People really want to express their feelings, and I want to hear them. 404-872-0750, 1-800-WSB Talk. This is Monica Perez.
Monica Perez on News 95.5 and AM 750 WSB.
We're talking about the very contentious issue of flag burning, and my point is that the fact that it's contentious gives it so much power, and that this is not lost on the people who are giving this a lot of airtime. And in parallel with the whole fake news thing, I feel like this is that we're being teed up for a re-examination of the First Amendment. I want to hear what you have to say. I have a lot of great calls coming up. Alexander, Cliff is a vet. Ryan wants to talk about hate speech. Right now, I'm going to Doug in McDonough. Hi, Doug. You're on with Monica.
Hey, how's your day going?
Good. How's your day going?
Wonderful. Just wanted to put my thoughts in there. I haven't heard anything on this line yet. Personally, I would say the feds need to leave it alone and go to the small municipalities. Any law trying to stop it from happening on private property is not going to be successful. It's going to be overturned. But I believe on public lands, each municipality can make that decision for themselves.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, that calls to this idea of subsidiarity and the 10th Amendment, which are the same thing, really. It's that you want to always want to push down to local control all of this stuff. And that's actually the solution to these problems, that all this stuff that we're seeing of the people on the left freaking out because they're terrified of Donald Trump. I heard some gal saying on CNN, like, I can't believe this crap. I've got to fight for my civil rights again. And I'm like, okay, he's not even in office yet. What are you worried about? So if they would just look at, instead of saying we need to control, take back control, if they just looked at that was what the 10th Amendment was about in the first place. That's what the First Amendment's about. You know, you need to look at the Constitution of the Bill of Rights is the symbol, is what the flag symbolizes. It's the solution to the problems. And to sacrifice the First Amendment for this momentary problem is a mistake. But I love the resorting to the 10th Amendment. It is a good angle.
Well, I mean, it's absolutely. And I hadn't heard about this story until I tuned into your show about the college campus. I don't know I guess it was kids that went there that burnt the flag.
Yeah, I even wonder, it's like, do I have to tell this story? Does everybody know? But I noticed that I really didn't even know the story when I was...
I'm wondering, did they break the law? Did they steal the flag?
Well, he's saying, it seems to me from the story I read in the New York Times that the campus had made a decision to fly the flag at half staff, or somebody put it at half staff, and then in the middle of the night, they're saying it's students, pulled it down and burned it and made no statement and wasn't witnessed. That's just what I gathered from the article. And then the president made the decision to just take the flag down altogether just to keep problems from happening. But that was interpreted as a ban on the flag. You know, the whole thing just got so pumped up, and I feel like it was almost, I wonder if almost it was a stunt to get this kind of press, to get us to start thinking about it and dividing over it.
Could have been the other side doing it too.
Yeah, it could be a false flag.
Who did it, yeah.
Yeah, Yes, that's an interesting point. I really feel like what we're talking about is a concerted effort to create a problem. It's this classic, what they call the Hegelian dialectic. Maybe I should explain that after the break, where it's that whole the thesis, antithesis, synthesis. So the synthesis is the goal of the crisis, and the crisis is sometimes created just to get to that synthesis. So that's a lot of big stuff in there. Let's break it down after the break and get your calls. This is Monica Perez.
Live and festive in the Publix Holiday Headquarters studio at WSB.
Monica Perez on News 95.5 and AM 750 WSB.
I am your libertarian voice on WSB on Saturdays, back on Saturdays after football season, trying to be here 3 to 6, but basketball sometimes pushes me off a little bit. Next Saturday, I'll be on 4 to 6, but if you miss it, I'll always put the podcast up early in the week on my new website, propagandareportdaily.com, where Binkley, my producer, and I also put up daily news stories, just quick hits, our interpretation of some of the bigger news stories. So that's fun, but also plenty of stuff to listen to and also to watch in case you miss me on Saturday. But I am here right now, 404-872-0750, 1-800-WSB-TALK. Our numbers, and we're having a very robust conversation here about the flag burning dispute, which I just got a call saying I hadn't even heard about it, but it's the one specific incident I'm thinking of. But I think it all started with Colin Kaepernick sitting during the national anthem, then taking a knee. Then I noticed
the knee, by the way, that was a plan, because you're not going to have, that was a PR person that came in, because you're not going to have Colin Kaepernick, sitting on the bench on the cover of Time magazine as a symbol. So they decided to use something that was a little bit more powerful, that could be mimicked by people who were going to follow and join the movement.
Yes, and Binkley, you are like obsessed with propaganda, basically.
Yeah, it's like my mistress.
You do tweet at me excessively about these propaganda things, and it like goes over my head half the time that you see what the meaning of these symbols are, and and I'm beginning to recognize because of that these symbols are really powerful, and I'm not 100% sure why they have so much impact.
Well, they have such an impact because symbols are, people personally identify with certain symbols on a deep emotional level, and everybody has their own experience that they can tell a story. Like, people can tell a story about their grandfather or their father or somebody in their family when it comes to the flag, and then people who feel a different way, because symbols are vague, so everybody identifies a different way. So that's
they're
why
like what I like to call the psychic paper from Doctor Who, where you look at it and you project. It's the same thing like when Obama would say nothing, hope and change, and Trump would say everything. It's like whatever that canvas is, you can put whatever you want on it.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
It's so funny that you say that everyone has a story, because I have a story about the flag that's one of the most emotional moments of my entire life. I was at the 2002 Winter Olympics. I think that might have been the ones Romney did in Utah. But it was 2002 Winter Olympics. I was pregnant with my first child, and I was worried about him because it was cold out. And George W. Bush got up to initiate the ceremonies, and out comes, I guess, a bunch of military people. I couldn't even remember who was doing it. The biggest flag I ever saw, and it was burned. It was the 9/11 flag from the World Trade Center. And I will tell you, Bush was crying. Like, everybody in the place, we're talking, I don't know how many tens of thousands of people were there, were so moved emotionally. And even though my understanding of that event has changed, I don't even know how much they even said was known at that time. It just, it was so moving, and what it symbolized had nothing to do with tragedy, but it had to do with, sacrifice and love of country and what the country meant to you. It meant liberty and justice for all. Like, that's what, I still feel that. It was such a moving, and it makes me sad, but I'm so cynical now. I can't be moved to tears like that. I can't even watch movies that move me to tears because I'm like, that. I just hate being manipulated. I just can't stand it anymore.
That's why it's powerful, is because you almost can't not feel something when a flag goes up. But if you can manipulate that meaning to be something negative, to be where it's oppression, like they have done, then you're going to create that conflict between opposing groups.
Yeah, and I put that on there myself. And what we've been talking about is what you've brought up is that actually caller brought it up, where what we're seeing is two different symbolic representations. The flag appears on every single agent of government or military person, law enforcement. Do you see that as those are the people who are protecting you, or those are the people who are oppressing you? And that is. It's funny because I do refer to this thing, the report from Iron Mountain, where they talked about how you want to take members of your own community to get the mainstream or the middle or the masses or whatever to look to government as the ones who protect you from that other group. And it could be that the flag itself is a way for each of those groups to identify that conflict that's been created. I really feel like this is a creation, what's happening now. But I want to get to some calls. 404-872-0750, 1-800-WSB-TALK. I'm going to Cliff in Ackworth. Hi, Cliff. You're on with Monica.
Hey, great. So your comments that you just made is a great lead into what I have to say about it. You've had a couple of callers that have kind of touched around the whole reason why the flag has such a symbolic meaning. And let me just give you a little bit of a history lesson for some of you listeners. This flag historically has represented the entirety of America and people in freedom, and just as you mentioned. But you've had people who have served this country, not just now, but since the beginning of this nation, who've served not only under that flag, but have gone into battle with that flag and have literally died at that flag. And when you have emotions like that, our national anthem is about our flag. And so...
Yes, I always thought that was interesting.
Yeah, and so, when you talk about the two separations, to the tale of two cities, and you've got the people who have never served, and you've got the people who have served their country and understand what the flag represents, and that it doesn't represent the government at all. It represents the entire nation, we as a people. And that goes back as far as Roman days, people who had symbols that were carried in battle that represented the symbol of Rome.
I mean, this is something that I find interesting in that this whole news story right now is bringing it up to me, and I had not recognized it before. But I want to say, when my father died, he fought. I'm the youngest of 9, so do not infer anything about my age. But my father did fight in World War II. He was probably the youngest. I think he lied about his age to get in. He was a sailor in the Pacific Theater. And at his funeral, when he was 79, they sent, I don't even know how they knew, but somebody must have told them, they sent sailors. And they folded a flag, and they knelt to my mother, and they gave her this flag. And I'm telling you, I was so... the emotions were overwhelming. And this was something completely out of my realm of experience to even know what he went through. I mean, he talked about it a lot, but I was so moved, and I was so proud of my father. And, but I didn't realize, what I'm saying to your point is that what I still, even then until today, realize that the military representation, because to me, the flag, I was always taught to think of it as a symbol of the American experiment of liberty and justice for all, and not associated with strictly war.
That's exactly correct. And what's funny is that, there's actually a provision for burning the flag, and it's indoctrinated in the military. And I was watching the news, and I saw the flagpole at Hampshire, the college, and I noticed that they shot a beautiful picture of what the truck on top of the flagpole. And a lot of people don't know what a truck is. A truck is a ball that sits on top of the flagpole, and inside of that truck are several things. One is a razor blade, the other is matches, and the other is a .45 caliber bullet. And that is on every military base in the United States. What happens is if that base is ever attacked, like, the example where we have our national anthem talking about the flag flying through battle, if that flag is ever in jeopardy of being captured, the commander of that base goes to that flagpole, removes the truck from the top of the flagpole, takes the razor blade, cuts the stars out of the flag, burns the flag, takes the 45 round, digs the 45 up that's sitting 12 inches north of the flagpole, inserts the round, and defends with his last
That is so interesting. And I do believe that I was always taught that if you have a flag that you have to take out of service, you need to burn it, right?
Well, you cut the stars out and you
ceremonially.
Burn it. That's the provision for burning it. But, all that aside, it's really interesting to see how people don't, there's a large segment of the society that doesn't understand the symbolism of the flag. And they go, well, how is this such a big issue?
I can only give you one more word because I want to have a lot of calls have been waiting. But Cliff, what do you say? Do you need to forcibly stop people from doing it, or should this be a case of social pressure, dignity, respect, and just don't do it?
I'm on the fence with it because, I'm a conservative that believes in the First Amendment. But at the same time, I'm also a veteran who has served under that flag and has seen, people die serving that flag. Yeah. And so it's a real emotionally charged issue for me. And I'm undecided at this point, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, as a libertarian, I have to look at I always prefer social power to government power. And frankly, I think it is more powerful. If we ask the government to step in, they win. That it actually does reduce the power of that flag. But if you censure people, if you reject them, if you don't accept it, don't send your kids to that school or whatever, I think that's actually more powerful. I want to go to Ryan. Ryan, you're on with Monica.
Hey, Monica.
Hey, Ryan.
So you had a caller a couple of calls back that was talking about hate speech and that they could somehow use hate speech as a way to censor people from burning the flag, but hate speech is still protected under the First Amendment of the Constitution, even though it's deplorable. That's why groups like the Westboro Baptist Church are able to go to college campuses and funerals and protest with very hateful signs.
Well, maybe I should have boned up on it, but isn't there there are some limitations, not just crying fire, but,
Right. The limitations to free speech are basically you can't use speech to incite violence. You can't use speech like fighting words. You can't use you can't defame people, libel, slander, that sort of stuff. But as far as being critical of races or sexes or offending people, that stuff's all protected by the First Amendment still.
Well, and I am honestly, a little. Yeah, go ahead. Finish up.
This all seems to me like it's the conservative version of PC culture in that, this action offends me, therefore I want to silence it. And to me, that's not really very different from the social justice warriors who want to silence the speech of other people when it offends them.
Yes, Ryan, you're absolutely hitting on something so important. I'll get to it probably at the top of the hour, about how these kind of principles are so often attacked on the right, from the right, by the right, to undermine the principles because they have a hot button issue. DOMA was like that, the Defense of Marriage Act, bans on plastic bag bans, states telling municipalities how they have to do their bathroom laws. These are hot button issues that the right uses to say, hey, we believe that you should have local control of your laws, but this is too important. Same thing. We believe in free speech, but this is too important. It's a tactic used by both sides. I want to get into that a little bit more. 404-872-0750, 1-800-WSB-TALK. This is Monica Perez.
Check back often for breaking news, weather, and traffic updates on WSB and the WSB Radio app this weekend. And join us Monday for Atlanta's Morning News for new developments of the transition to Trump and more cold rain in Kirk Mellish's 5-day forecast.
This is Monica Perez. We are having a lively conversation about the flag burning and whether you like it or not, what it means to you, why it's emotional, and if there should be a law against it. You're throwing people in jail, going on their own property, dragging them off. I don't know. I mean, as a libertarian, I can't support that. And I actually think it empowers the people who use that as a symbol by escalating it, calling in the government. But I do respect, I've had that feeling with the emotions that it evokes and how important it is. And personally, for me, I think it's a symbol of the solution of these problems, that if we just go to the Bill of Rights and we strictly defend the rights of everyone, including states' rights, then we wouldn't have a fraction of the conflicts we have. Charles, I'm going to you. You've been on hold too long. I'm going to give you the 2 minutes, but I've only got a short segment here. So what do you got?
Yes, thank you for the time. I just think that your discussion is being American, we follow the Constitution. The Constitution gives us no rights. It recognizes the rights that we are given by our Creator. So no matter what you feel or what you think, I have the right as a sovereign citizen to do what I want with my property and my things and my life. And if you or anybody else says that I can't, that is un-American. It's plain and simple.
You know what's interesting, Charles, about what you're saying is that you said these rights are not given to you by the government, they're given to you by God. And then you said that it's un-American. And one thing that I think people rarely realize is that if they are given to you by God, it's really inhuman. It's you know what I mean? It's beyond un-American. These are rights that everyone must have. These basic human rights. I'm not saying we need to be a police force of the world and make sure people get those rights, but I think it's very important to, it's a way to open up your mind about when they start talking about how we treat people in other countries. We need to recognize that everybody has these rights. But you can finish up your thought. I'm sure you have something else.
Other countries, they don't matter. They're not Americans. I'm not saying they don't matter, but in this issue, I'm an American. And I, as an American, I'm given rights endowed by my Creator. And they're inalienable.
But if you're not American, you still have those inalienable rights endowed by the Creator, correct?
Not under the Constitution, no.
Well, yes, the Constitution does not require. Yes, the Constitution is restricted.
That's why our nation is blessed. Under our Constitution, if you're born in this country, we recognize those inalienable rights. Other countries do not recognize.
Yes, and that to me is what is the essence of American exceptionalism, not our right to invade other countries or not to recognize the sovereignty of other nations, but to demand our sovereignty recognized. What's exceptional is that we recognize the fundamental rights that all human beings are endowed with by their Creator. And yes, so it's a nuanced point. I may get calls to try to flesh that out if I didn't make it clear. I'm open to that. 404-872-0750.
In the Public Holiday Headquarters studio at
This
WSB.
is Monica Perez.
Please take my hand. Now open your mind to me. Please open your mind. Open your mind. Open your mind.
This is Monica Perez, your libertarian voice on News 95.5 and AM 750 WSB. Back on Saturdays. I try to be here from 3 to 6. It doesn't always work out that way because we still have some basketball. So next week I'm on from 4 to 6 on Saturday, but I always post my podcasts early in the week as soon as they're up on WSB. And then I also do some podcasts online with my producer Binkley, and we have started a website called propagandareportdaily.com where we put our WSB podcasts, our Propaganda Report podcast, and also every day we'll put a few quick hits up of what the news is saying and what it's really trying to do. So we like to pick out the most blatant propaganda of the day if you want to check that out. And we have a very robust conversation going on right now because, for me, the propaganda meme is setting us up. Right now, there's a lot of themes. We're not going to cover them all. We're really focusing on the flag burning thing because it's so emotional and important. But there are a lot of different things out in the news that I think are really teeing us up for a crackdown on the free flow of information, of political expression, of beliefs, of all the things that are enshrined in the First Amendment. On purpose, is it first, I will say, that it's even more important, I realize now, after not realizing it before, but is more important than the Second Amendment even, because without discourse and dissent, you cannot have a body politic. You cannot have a self-governing society like this. You just can't have it. So you need information, and in my opinion, what they're proposing, what the left is proposing in response to fake news and Russian propaganda, is that we curate the news, everyone from Obama to Vernon Jordan, and even without realizing it, I think a little bit of Melania Trump. I just posted on my Facebook page an article I wrote about this with quotes from those guys saying how we need to curate the news, separate facts from fiction, prioritize it, change the tone, make sure people are civil. These are all the things that are not a part of an effective political discourse. And I think that we're being set up on the left and the right to accept some encroachments on our First Amendment rights. And Ryan had called before the break saying that the flag burning thing, I should have held him on, but he was saying that the flag burning thing is a way of getting the right on board with some of these controlling speech, the way the hate speech folks and the social justice warriors were trying to do it from the left. And I've thought that before. I actually wrote a glossary entry this week called right cover. How there's an expression left cover where someone like Obama can silence the anti-war left so he can drop 20,000 bombs on Syria and Iraq like he did in 2015. You probably didn't even hear that because he silenced the media on the left. So right cover would be a way for our leaders on the right to get the people on the right who really, because they're individualists rather than collectivists, really care about these individual liberties enshrined, protected by the Bill of Rights, in restraint of government, all that kind of stuff. If you can get them emotionally charged about a specific issue and they're willing to compromise on the fundamental principles, that's all you need. That's your foot in the door. And I feel like that's what this is all about. And if you could just say, well, in this one case, nothing's absolute and you can't cry fire in a crowded theater, I get that. But when it's a plot, when it's a goal with an agenda, a purpose, and is really meant to be just a wedge in the door to open it more and more, that's when I say and that's why I always say you really have to be absolutely strict about this stuff because it's always going to be a wedge. I am going to take some calls, 404-872-0750, 1-800-WSB Talk. I'm going to Terry. Hi, Terry. You're on with Monica. Hey,
Hello.
Terry. Are you with me, Terry? You're on the air.
Yeah, I sure am. Chris, he stole my thunder a little bit, but
that's okay. We can always people tune in all the time, so you go for it again.
Yeah, I know it. I come from a long history of military people. I can document back to 1812 up to the present, and I feel that people burning the flag, they should just go somewhere else. I know it's their free speech, their right to do that. And what they do on their own property is fine with me. But when they bring it out into the public, into the city streets, and it seems like they had to put some sort of accelerant on them, the way those flags just burst into flames, Well,
I want to point out, I want to expand that a little bit, Terry. One thing I noticed was, like with the Colin Kaepernick thing, the NFL it's a quasi-governmental by this point. I would say these big leagues that have kind of monopolies, I guess, but they just feel like governmental entities that are really sensitive to stuff. But my guess is they have rules that these guys have to stand up and respect the flag and the national anthem. It's probably been in the rules for decades. And why they didn't enforce that, I smell a rat when they don't enforce. When a school, all these darn schools are basically run by the government, funded by the government, and so there's no more private property. But basically everything should be private property. The NFL and Hampshire College and all these places, and then those people can have their own rules about it. Yes, you can't send the cops onto somebody's private property and decide, but if you have a private institution, you should be able to decide that for sure.
Yeah, I agree. And, I don't know if this is true or not, but I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and I believe that the Rooneys sat everybody down and said anybody who behaves in this manner will not be a welcome member of the Pittsburgh Steelers,
Yeah, I'm a big fan of dealing with stuff at the smallest possible level. It's the principle of subsidiarity. It's enshrined in the 10th Amendment. It means everything should be pushed down to where you can handle it personally. And I think that is that would be a solution. And that reminds me of one other thing, that Kanye West interrupted Taylor Swift's awards ceremony some years ago. I was at the Grammys. I think it was last year. Beck was getting an award. Kanye West interrupted him. And both of those were him saying, the sisters or whatever, that it was racist to give the white people the award. So that fed into this meme of conflict, whatever. But recently, Kanye West on his tour at every single place was making a speech, threw Mark Zuckerberg under the bus. I think at one point he said he would vote for Trump if he had voted at all, and just contradicted the meme. And wouldn't you know it, he ended up being forcibly committed to a mental institution, handcuffed to a gurney, and his tour canceled. And I feel like they didn't take action. Nobody took action when he should have been banned from all award ceremonies. That was my initial reaction the second I saw him up there interrupting Taylor Swift's speech. And they didn't do that because it fed the meme, and they're fine with bad behavior. They don't care about decorum. But now, and that's funny because they're not going to say he was arrested for free speech. It's like, oh, he lost his mind. Like, really, he lost his mind? He said the same thing over and over again at every concert. Obviously, he was, lucid. They took him in. He was completely lucid. So I'm saying these institutions do nothing when clear breaches of decorum, when it feeds the meme. But when it doesn't, they can call in the authorities. Anyway, maybe that's just an aside. I'm going to go to Mike in Cornelia. Hi, Mike. You're on with Monica.
Hi, Monica. I just want to first say thank you for the interview you had with Dr. Ron Paul.
That was the highlight of my career, as you can imagine. And anybody who wants to hear it should. I posted it on my website, MonicaPerezShow.com. And I have to say, it took everything I had to keep my mouth shut and listen. But I did it.
I can imagine. He is the greatest Christian civil magistrate this country has ever had, I believe.
Yep. He's not as articulate, but he is what Judge Andrew Napolitano called him, the modern day Thomas Jefferson. It took me a long time to fully appreciate that. Now, I don't know if they're Thomas Jefferson and Patrick Henry. I'd have to, as it's a tough one but I would say there's an upper echelon and they're all in it.
And I think one of the questions I would have asked Dr. Paul is, what really what's the root of what drives his whole ambition of getting this information out to people. But I think the roots of his Christian faith is what really drives him. And
what's great is that you don't hear about it. He doesn't want to enforce that on people. It just drives him.
Right.
And
he wants to do it by example. And
and he cares about liberty and justice for all. Like when he's against the wars and he fights for liberty, I really feel that behind it all is simply that he hungers and thirsts for justice sake.
Absolutely. And I think on this flag burning issue, I think he would address it simply as a property rights issue.
Yes.
And I'd like to challenge Christians out there to think about this. Let's say, does your neighbor have a right to take their Bible, if you're a Christian, the Bible is no comparison to the flag of the United States of America. The Bible is, it's life itself. But the issue of your neighbor taking the Bible and burning it out in their front yard or go burn it out on the square, whatever, do they have the right to burn that Bible? And, again, going back to property rights, I would recognize that as a Christian to say, that's their personal property. That's on them. That's between them and their maker. And if they burn their Bible, I feel sad for them.
Yeah, and I see that, and I don't like the Muhammad stuff. I don't know much about Islam, but I'm sure it's totally offensive, and there's no reason for it. I don't like it. Those are the kind of expressions that, are manipulative to me. But you're right. I mean, they're private property. You have to recognize it, and you know what? When you do, you completely defuse the issue. You take the power out of the issue because you just, when you want to defuse something, ignore it. But I bet that'll make the lines light up. More calls after this. This is Monica Perez.
Monica Perez on News 95.5 and AM 750 WSB.
We are getting really into the depth of this flag burning thing. I had like 5 different things I wanted to talk to in this show, and I just didn't think that there would be so much nuance here. I want to go to Tolentino in Conyers. Hi, you're on with Monica. You've called before.
Okay, I just want to get to the root of the problem.
Yes.
And it's not about people fighting against people. It is against evil fighting against good. Okay? And this root began in 1963 when a lady by the name of Marlene O'Hare, worked hard and took the Bible out of the school system. And from that point on, the minds of our children didn't have a balance. They only have the balance of the other side of the spectrum by coming from the left, okay? So if I meet you as a person, I can see your body, but I cannot see your soul, which is an invisible part of you, your intellect, emotions, and will. I cannot see your thinking, I cannot see your feelings, and I cannot see your will. So we are looking at the problem from the visible point. But we live in a natural world and we live in a spiritual world. And the problem is spiritual. Evil against good. The American soldier is good, and there's attack on the military. There's attack on the cross, on Jesus, on the Bible. Anything that's good, there's an attack on these things. And this is where the point we have to look at, the invisible point.
Okay, what you're talking about is it's a really deep subject that requires a lot of thought and teasing out. And I'll tell you where I come from on this is that I'm a hardcore libertarian, and I'm an anarcho-capitalist. I do not believe that in the modern world, the modern state can be trusted. I feel it's a pathocracy that works against us. But I will say that as a libertarian, it's very easy to just look straight away and say, like it should be a free-for-all. Of course, I, for one, do not want any kind of melding of church and state. However, you have to recognize that the roots of responsible liberty lie in morality, in an understanding of norms of ethics and behavior. And if you look at where those roots, those ethics come from, I think what you're saying is Christianity was, you're not saying this, but I believe Christianity was replaced with secular humanism, which is like a God, a non-God ethic. And does that have power? I think Plato said it does not have power, that you have to, if God isn't real, you have to invent him for morality. But it's a big subject. We can touch on it a little more, and I'm going to blow through these calls right after the break. This is Monica Perez.
Live and festive in the Publix Holiday Headquarters studio at WSB.
Monica Perez on News 95.5 and AM 750 WSB.
I am the Libertarian Voice on WSB. Saturdays, I'm back. Try to be here from 3 to 6. Sometimes I have to work around basketball. Next Saturday, I'll be on 4 to 6. If you missed the show and want the podcast, I post that. And I also do a show, especially when I don't have a WSB show, because I like to keep it warm and people really enjoy it. It's a little bit of a different thing. I do a podcast with Binkley, my producer here, and we really can get in depth into subjects because we don't have to take a commercial break every couple of minutes. So if people want to listen to that, enjoy it, support it, what do you tell them to do, Binkley?
Go to propagandareportdaily.com, and on the right, in the column on the right, you're going to see a button that says Get It on iTunes with a little apple on it. Click on that button, and then leave us a rating. If you like the show, leave us a rating and a review. And if you don't like the show, then don't click on that button and don't vote at all.
Why would you?
Yeah.
Right, isn't that what Trump said?
Exactly.
Like, I'm not going to tell you to vote. Don't vote. If you're not going to vote for me, don't vote.
Self-censorship if you don't like it.
But that helps because then it's when people try to search for it, if you have more subscribers, it gets higher up in the search
Yes,
engine,
exactly.
right? So then more people get it, and it's more fun that way.
Right.
So I like that, and we really enjoy that. And then also that website, Propaganda Report Daily, we are making a lot of. We do it daily, so it's a little more fun, and we can converse with people in the comment section and everything. So I really enjoy that, and you can check that out. But I am here for a little while longer, and I've got a few calls left. And if you are on hold, I'm going to try to go through these, click them off so that everybody gets a chance. And my first caller is Brett in Bold Springs. Brett, you have been a long-time listener and a frequent caller, but I haven't heard from you in a while. What's going on?
Oh, how are you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Oh, your callers have me wound up.
I know, and I knew, because, I mean, it's not like you're easy to deal with, so I do not feel like, I was like, oh, great, Brett, I'm excited to talk to you, but you could start yelling at me any minute.
No, I'm not going to yell at you.
Thanks.
I'd like to remind the previous caller that we're not a theocracy, we're a secular nation, so he can take his Bible and stuff and keep it to himself. Christians have been running this country for a long time, and look what the state that we're in, so his argument is invalid.
I'm so glad this is in the last half hour, because if that were in the beginning and I had 3 hours of people yelling back at you, Brett, I don't think I could take it. So, okay, go ahead. What else you got? Because you've been on hold a long time. You've got to have more than that.
Yeah, I'm really wound up. That guy at the beginning of the hour that said, if you're going to burn the flag, go somewhere else. I'm a vet, too. I'm a combat vet, okay? And I say burn the flag. Go ahead. And the reason why I say that is because I've been to other countries where if you pull stunts like that, they'll take you out and shoot you or string you up by a lamppost by your neck and set you on fire.
Or kick you out of the country. Well, I guess that's the easy way out. But I think that's what Trump's tweet said. Exile, loss of citizenship.
And so you ought to be thankful that you live in a country where you can peacefully dissent for the most part and not get shot.
That's such a great point. I really appreciate that. Like, just to think about what it really means in real time to crack down on people. See, that's what I had made this point earlier in the show. When you look at the symbol of the flag, if that symbol becomes a shield for tyrants at the top who are treasonous towards the principles that you fought for, then all of a sudden that becomes a symbol of that tyranny if it protects them. So at what point, and that's when they really are going to crack down on your reacting to it with dissent.
Right, and remember this, as soon as you say, hey, I don't like what they're doing with their liberty, stop it, the powers that be can then turn that focus around on you and stop you from your liberties.
Which is exactly what's happening with the left-right turnaround. They thought it was totally fine to give Obama all the surveillance powers in the world, and now that Trump has them, they're already screaming that Trump has these incredible surveillance powers. It's like, who's been putting them in place for the past 8 years?
Being free means you have to tolerate things you don't like. And I ask people who say, kick them out of the country. Do you really want freedom, or do you just want your worldview to fit what you want so you can be comfortable?
In which case, if you just went to the 10th Amendment, you really have a lot of latitude. Even the First Amendment, it says Congress shall pass no law to establish religion or abridge blah, blah, blah. Like, if you really look at the 10th Amendment, it can give a lot of latitude to the 50 experiments that are going on. That's the one thing they should be focusing on.
Right. Well, I'm like this. Freedom of speech is not an American right. It is a human right.
I agree with that 100%. People forget that.
Yeah. So, think about that. And to all the naysayers, think about if you actually love freedom or not. Because if you do...
And justice.
And
liberty and justice.
Think about it. Because I think a lot of people they want it to be their way, and anybody outside is a problem. And that's not freedom.
Right. And I feel like... the idea of thinking of these things as inherent rights can help people when we're inundated with propaganda about why it's okay for us to have some of these wars where we have no business in other countries telling them what to do. Well,
Yeah,
it's not our business to take a side out.
Yeah, and that don't even get me started on that. I'm tired of our guys going over there getting jacked up over.
Well, I'm not going to get you started on that because it's hard to take that turn when I'm going to do a show on Syria and it's going to be intense, and I will tweet you personally, Brett. But you were all fired up. Is there anything else? I'm going to move on.
No, I'm going to just drop the mic. I think I did all right.
All right, thanks, Brett. Thanks for calling.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Okay, Johnny in Atlanta. What you got?
Hello?
Hi, Johnny. You're on with Monica.
Yeah, hey, I'm a vet, too, and I want to... What's going on in America today, the problem is you have so many people here that don't know anything about the Western way. They don't know anything about, all they think, they come over here and it's just like, they don't forget where they come from. They don't forget their mores. They don't forget their religions and stuff like that, okay? And they bring that here. And it takes a couple of generations to be inculcated into Americanism. But the problem is we don't teach American government. We don't teach the Constitution and the Bill of Rights anymore because it's so offensive to people.
You know what I think, though? I think there's that what used to happen, and I can tell you this from my own family history, that the economic sink or swim reality of the economic liberty of the U.S. taught those values not just in several generations, but immediately. And in my own experience, my Irish grandparents came over. They stayed. They made a life here.
They wanted to be Americans.
Yes, but here's the thing that happened is that I had also a Syrian grandmother whose parents came over. Her mother died in childbirth. The father decided to go back to Syria. He couldn't deal with it, and he left my grandmother as a baby in an Irish convent. She was raised by Irish nuns. He could not handle the sink or swim reality of this country, and he went back. Whereas when you have a welfare state, when you have these support networks where people don't necessarily have to conform or speak the language or get with the program to eat, that's why I think Europe has these serious problems. I really feel that the answer is an economic and personal liberty.
Now, here's what I say about the flag, okay? As a veteran, all right? Yes, that's what it goes back to teaching, okay? There's a proper way to burn the flag. If you want to protest America, and you want to burn the flag, you burn the flag, but you show it the respect that it deserves. You show it the respect that you show the people that have died for that flag.
How does that work? So you're saying you can burn it in protest respectfully?
Yes, you can burn the flag respectfully. You sure can. Because look, I fought for your freedom, but I didn't fight for anarchy. I fought so that you could peacefully protest, so that you had a redress of grievance to your government and things like that. That's what I thought. That's what I put my life on the line for. I didn't put my life on the line for anarchy. And just because you're a minority, that does not trump law. You have these rights as a minority because of those laws.
I think that it is true that you cannot actually cause problems doing anything. Like you're not allowed to start riots or hurt people or put people in danger. I think that's a reasonable standard. Our rights stop where they encroach on other people's rights, and to want to step in with the force of guns, which is all the government really represents. The government has power as an extension of your right to self-defense, and you can't have them start violating that by imposing through violence these rules. I'm going to Kenneth in Alpharetta. Hi, Kenneth. You're on with Monica.
Hey, I just wanted to kind of propose an alternate theory about Trump's tweet about flag burning.
Okay.
So I personally think at least a good chunk of what Trump was doing there was trolling. And in particular, he was trolling the mainstream media and also the protesters who are out, protesting Trump that we see on TV and social media all the time. The mainstream media took the bait because they went crazy over Trump's tweet, right? You remember seeing that?
Yeah.
And so, but then Trump surrogates were hitting them back online, pointing out the fact that Senator Hillary Clinton had co-authored a bill to do the same thing.
Yes, I read that in 2005 with almost the same problems. The same, like 1 year in jail and $100,000 fine.
Right. And so by having the mainstream media freak out like that and then get smacked back, it pointed out how hypocritical they were.
And Trump was on, I saw a video of him on Letterman just last year saying how you have to have the right to burn the flag the way you have the right to draw Muhammad cartoons. And Charlie Hebdo has the right to make Holy Trinity three-way cartoons. I mean, he was defending that just a year ago. So there's definitely something to the idea that it's... that it was meant to get a reaction. I think it goes a little deeper, but I always think everything goes deeper. Time for one more call. I'm going to Michael in Canton. Hi, Michael. You're on with Monica.
Yeah, hey, just kind of someone had said it earlier about property rights. Really, I'm not, of course, I'm against the burning of the flag. I think it's a horrible thing for people to do, but certainly they have the right to do it. But the right only depends on where they burn it. It becomes a property rights issue. So if you do it in a public place, well, I can't go out and take a bunch of bags and just start burning them in a public place. I'd be arrested because it's might cause a fire or it might cause a riot or whatever. So it's really where they burn it. So if they buy their own flag, at a store and they want to burn it, really, they don't have any place to burn it except in their own house or on their own driveway, maybe.
Yeah, and it doesn't make sense to make the rules different because of the reason or whatever. That's why the Colin Kaepernick thing. I was like, you know what? There's probably a rule that you're not allowed to do that, but they're going to let them do it because they think it's an important issue. Don't break the rules. You're not allowed to burn stuff in a certain place. Don't burn stuff. But if it's your flag, it's on your property, you can... you have to be able to, you can't send the police onto your property to stop that if it's not really hurting anybody else. So we're going to wrap it up after this. Stay tuned. This is Monica Perez.
Monica Perez on News 95.5 and AM 750 WSB.
Chilly with a 90% chance of rain Monday as the work week begins, but that could change. So stay tuned to WSB for weekend weather. Brought to you by Shoemate Heating and Air. And I don't want to forget the McDonald's Weekend Prize Pack. It is a pair of tickets to see the Game of Thrones live concert experience on March 14th at Phillips Arena, produced by Live Nation, and a family 4-pack of tickets to an Atlanta Gladiators home game at the Infinite Energy Arena. The first to call 404-741-0750 will get that prize pack. Looks like a good one. And we will continue to follow censorship and the attack on the First Amendment, which I think is a major agenda item in at least the year to come, if not the years to come. But in the week to come, don't forget that Tuesday, December 7th, is the 75th anniversary of Pearl Harbor. And there's a lot of, if you want to go deep, if you like to go down the rabbit hole, there's a lot of stuff there on Pearl Harbor that you can look into. Even bubbling up to the mainstream, I saw an article in the Wall Street Journal, in the weekend Wall Street Journal today, that talked about how Kimmel and Short were the admirals who really took some flack for, lost some stars even, for being held responsible for Pearl Harbor. But that has been, their names have been cleared, but their stars have not been restored. And but there is actually real deep stories behind why there were so many failures on Pearl Harbor. So we'll post stuff about that on propagandareportdaily.com and maybe even do a podcast on that. In the meanwhile, you can continue this conversation on Facebook, Twitter, at Monica Perez Show. Check out propagandareportdaily.com, where I will post this show, my WSB show, early in the week when the podcast is ready. And next Saturday, I will be live here on WSB from 4 to 6. Until then, this is Monica Perez.